Hello again everybody and welcome to another TitanSlyr stream. Today we are back in the Shadowlands beta and we're going to be taking a look at Resto Druid. As I mentioned in the previous streams that I've done, Resto Druid is potentially the class that I will be using as an alt, most likely going to be that. There is potential that it might become main. I'm still undecided whether or not to drop Warrior as main and go full on into Resto Druid instead. I've been playing a little bit of Resto Druid on retail recently, and I am very much enjoying healing in Mythic Plus, but ultimately, you know, the whole thing is that I want to be playing my Warrior, and generally I tend to regret changing to a different class when it comes to a new expansion, but that's why I'm still a little bit tentative in terms of the decision whether or not I stick with Warrior or continue on with Druid. So I've literally just created this character now on the beta just so that we can have a look at some of the changes that have come through at Resto Druid. Now I'm not 100% on all of the skills and changes that have come through with Resto Druid, and again, this is the beta, it will change. Even just logging into it today, there was an update that needed to be done, so it's nothing here that is necessarily set in concrete, but ultimately it gives us a chance just to take a look, and then I'll try and jump into a dungeon as well if I can, just so we can see how it feels in a dungeon. So the first thing that you'll have to do whenever you do play beta and you create a new character that's level 60 is you need to choose a Covenant. Now I thought this was a good opportunity for us to have a look at the Covenant abilities that will be available with each of the 4 Covenants for Resto Druid. You can do that by speaking to the main sort of person here, and then you can test the abilities. This will then give you the 2 abilities on a tooltip, so you can see the signature ability, and then you can see the sort of additional one. Now this one here, I think it's just the same for all of them. So with the Necrolords, it basically gives you like an absorption shield, which is stronger if you do it when you're near a corpse. So if we use Fleshcraft, really nice looking ability. It is channeled, so it probably isn't the best in terms of PvP, but again, I could be wrong there, because if you can get away from your enemy and then it gives you that extra little bit, I mean it's 20% of your HP pool, so it's pretty strong. So I don't know, it could see some use in PvP. PvE, I imagine, you know, if you can pop that, kill a pack of trash, pop this, get the 50%, and then go into a large pull, could be very handy as well. In terms of the signature ability, so it grants you one which is called Adaptive Swarm. Command a swarm that heals 1364 or deals damage over 12 seconds to a target and increases the effectiveness of periodic effects on them. Upon expiration, jumps to a target within 25 yards, and it does that up to 3 times. That seems like a pretty strong move to me. Obviously I haven't had a look at the others as of yet, so I'll just stick that on the toolbar for now, cast that on myself. So there we go, it's restoring health, and then it also increases the heals. So if we put like a life bloom on, in fact if I take that off for a moment, and there you go, you can see it jumping across to a new target there. What's really nice is that it keeps the 20% increase from the heal over time effects. I did think that might come down, but it looks like that stays. And let's just bounce back over to myself there. So I'll just click that off. I'm just going to check just to see what rejuvenation is healing for normally. So it's ticking for 289 as a standard tick. If we cast this on ourselves here, just want to get rid of sticky targeting, won't be a second. So if we now cast this on ourselves, and then we pop a rejuvenation, so it's gone from 289 to 371, which is a really, really good difference. So that does seem very powerful. And it's only a 25-second cooldown, plus with it jumping around, you're going to have multiple versions of that up at any one time. Because the cooldowns come off now, it's still available. Does it stack? So it does stack, so that's also quite interesting to know, is that it can go above the 3 stacks if it bounces back to yourself and you then cast it in the previous time as well. It will stack with itself. The only thing is, it's a passive. Bouncing around is a passive thing, you have no control over it, so that could be, you know, that's one sort of potential negative side to it, but ultimately I still think that's a pretty good looking skill set that comes with that Covenant. The next one that we'll have a look at is the TitanSlyr, so let's click to test their abilities here. For whatever reason, it's only given me the one.
What is our next target?
Right, let's have a look and just see what he says here. So the ability that I would get if I chose the TitanSlyr would be Ravenous Frenzy. So for 15 seconds, Druid spells cast increase your damage, healing and haste by 2% stacking. If you spend 2 seconds idle, the frenzy overcomes you, consuming 1% of your health per stack, stunning you for a second and ending. Not too keen on that personally. I feel like the stun and having to sort of manage that, especially in, you know, potentially like a sort of high risk environment like a Mythic Plus, like a high Mythic Plus or something like that, I just feel like the benefit from that wouldn't be worth it. It has put it on my toolbar, so if we let's pop it, and then it said if I become idle for 2 seconds, so if I'm just running around casting spells, how high can it go? I mean, the in terms of my haste, it's decent, but to have 15 seconds every 3 minutes, and if you do mess it up and stand still for too long, you're going to get stunned. For me, that doesn't seem like it would be worth it. Again, it's not been properly tested or anything like that, but in comparison between the Necrolords and the TitanSlyr, I definitely think the Necrolord one takes it, especially with Door of Shadows being the other benefit that you get from choosing TitanSlyr. As much as I like Door of Shadows and it's a really cool looking ability, I feel like the damaging shield that you can get and the absorption from Necrolords would be a better option. The next one that we'll take a look at is the TitanSlyr. So TitanSlyr, just in case nobody again knows, because actually I don't think I have gone through this in terms of what the Covenants will actually offer. So as I mentioned before, they do each offer one stable ability, which everyone will get the same ability. So for the TitanSlyr, we saw it was Door of Shadows, where you can teleport from one area to another. With the Necrolords, it's the Absorption Shield. With the TitanSlyr, we get the ability Soul Shape, which allows you to transform into a Vulpin, which is like a fox. Teleports 15 yards forwards and then gives you 15% movement speed. You can reactivate it again to teleport again every couple of seconds, and it lasts for 12 seconds or indefinitely in a rested area. Now, I would have liked this spell if it wasn't just rested areas that it lasted indefinitely in. If it was a case of it could last in old raids, for example, then this would be a really nice Covenant ability for classes such as Warrior, who, you know, are very slow and don't have much in the way of mobility to get around old raids when you're doing transmog runs and things like that. It might have actually drawn more people towards TitanSlyr, because I do think TitanSlyr will probably be the Covenant that gets the least representation. So it probably would have been quite nice to make that permanent or indefinite, as long as it's in like content that's level 50 or below. I think would have been quite a good idea, rather than just making it permanent, you know, indefinite in rested areas, because let's be honest, if you're in a rested area, you're just going to be on your mount anyway. I feel like this only benefits you when you're in this outer ring of Ouroboros, because for whatever reason in this outer ring of Ouroboros you're not allowed to mount, which doesn't make any sense to me. What is the difference between this area outside here and this area inside here? There's basically none. So that's one thing that I think would be a nice little change to bring more people to TitanSlyr, would be to make Soul Shape last indefinitely, not while in a rested area, but whilst in a level 50 or below zone. Definitely think that would be better. Now, in terms of the signature ability that we get Convoke the Spirits. Or class ability, sorry, signature ability is this one. So the class ability for Resto Druid is to call upon the TitanSlyr for an eruption of energy, channeling a rapid flurry of 12 Druid spells and abilities over 4 seconds. You will cast Wild Growth, Swift Mend, Moonfire, Wrath, Regrowth, Rejuvenation, Rake, and Thrash on appropriate nearby targets, favouring your current shapeshift form. So if we're going to be Resto, most likely outcome is that with it being a 2-minute cooldown, we're not going to be using that for damage, we're going to be using that for healing. So it'll do Wild Growth, Swift Mend, Moonfire, Wrath, Regrowth, and Rejuvenation is what I'm guessing. I will just cast this now and we'll have a look and see what it does actually pop off with. Okay, and then if we have a look, so I'm just going to quickly check the combat log. So yeah, Moonfire, Rejuvenation, Wild Growth. In terms of that ability, I don't know. Again, you've got no control over it. It's kind of passive. I know it's a cooldown that you actually use, but in terms of the targets of the spells, it's passive. There's no guarantee of who they're going to land on, unless it was to land on everybody, which I don't think it will. I think it's just going to, from what I can see, it just lands on sort of random targets. So in that respect, not too keen on Convoke the Spirits, in all fairness. Again, I just don't see where the benefit really comes from having an ability that you can't target. Like I know with the Necrolords one, sorry, once you've done the initial target, you can't then do it after that. It just bounces around. But I still feel like that benefit of having the initial target and knowing that you could, potentially pop that on your tank once every 25 seconds if they need that extra healing is definitely going to be a much bigger a bonus than having something that once every 2 minutes is just going to randomly cast some spells that you haven't really got any control over. Not only that, it's a channeled spell as well, so there's that downtime while you're channeling the spell that you could potentially be casting direct spells onto other characters. So it definitely seems a little bit weak for me, that one. The final one that we need to have a look at now then is the Kyrian, so we'll just take a quick look and see what they offer. I'll just press on there. So the signature ability that comes with Kyrian, as I did sort of briefly touch on before, is the Summon Steward. So this summons a little owl steward to your side, kind of like a little butler. It gives you File of Serenities, which essentially is just like a decent little portion, which is nice. In terms of it, it's a 5-minute cooldown, so I guess that's pretty good. To get those 3 things every 5 minutes isn't bad. And then he gives you, when you speak to him, he gives you these little options that you can see here. So you can select one, I need a favour, and then it will just give you little things like some items that you can buy, for example. So it's nothing amazing, but at the same time, I mean, one of the things he does give you is the option to change your talents once every 4 hours, so that's pretty good. But again, I mean, how often every 4 hours are you going to need to change your talents without going to a rested area? Probably not that often. And then you've got things like Play Me a Song and stuff like that. So, in terms of it, the Steward's probably one of the definitely more unique signature abilities, and definitely something that's a bit strange in a way, but hey ho, I'll take it. You also get this strange give compliment ability. Not really sure what that does, to tell you the truth. But yeah, the Steward's okay. In terms of the class ability then, let's have a look. So we get Kindred Spirits, which is a 2.4 second cast, so a decent cast time on there. No cooldown. Form a bond with an ally. Every 1 minute you may empower the bond for 10 seconds, granting you an effect based on your partner's role and granting them an effect based on your role. Now that feels very similar to, there was the old Druid spell that was removed from the game. I can't remember what the name of it was now, where basically you could get an ability from any other class and they would get one from you depending on what you chose. I think it began with an R, but I really can't remember the actual name of it now, and that seems very similar. The only problem I've got is there's no allies here to test it on. I don't know if there'll be anybody out and around in the sort of main area, because beta really does seem to be really quite quiet at the moment. Right, there we go. Well, they had zoned in, they've just zoned out again. Right, here we go. So if I just cast it on this guy, because he's stood still. So what is he? He's a Death Knight. I've lost the ability because I'm not in the zone anymore. Right, that's fine. So it's going to be kind of difficult to test that one. Could potentially see some benefits there, I imagine, depending on what skills you do actually gain from the other classes. That could see some use in, things like Mythic Plus and Raids potentially. Again, I'm surprised Blizzard are trying to reintroduce that sort of, because I think it was very overpowered when it was out before, the one where you actually got another spell from a different class. So I'm surprised Blizzard are reintroducing that. But that's good. That's a very unique thing. It's nice to see. There'll probably be a list, I imagine, online which tells you what spells and abilities you will give and what you'll get based on who you cast it on. So we could probably have a look at that at some point. But ultimately, I think based on what I've seen so far, the one that I'll most likely look to go with is the Necrolords. I think that's a pretty good looking thing. In terms of the set for leather, I think it's a pretty cool looking set. It's certainly unique. There's nothing like this that I've seen in the game. It's got the asymmetrical shoulders, which, as I've touched on before, are something that I do really enjoy. I think these shoulders would look fantastic on a Tauren, but the helm kind of caps it off for me, and I feel like helms is the weak point for Taurens. But definitely a unique look. Not very druidy. Obviously, if you want to go with the sort of druid aesthetic, Night Fate is the one that you're going to want to go with, but ultimately I definitely think this is a really nice looking set all in all. I'll just show you the other leather sets that are available, because I know I haven't touched on that before either. So for the Venthyr, the leather set looks like this. You probably saw it earlier when I did a quick check. Quite basic, I think. I think the leather sets for Venthyr and the leather raid sets are quite basic, to be honest with you. I think Blizzard could maybe have done a little bit of a better job on that. For the Night Fae, you get this nice looking, very druidy outfit, or yeah, it's more druid than shaman, definitely, with the sort of twisted branches and things like that. So if you are bothered more about how it looks and, you know, the ability to shapeshift and things like that, then I reckon Night Fae is going to be the choice for you. And then finally is the leather Kyrian set, which looks a little bit like this. Definitely the most boring of the lot. I would never choose Kyrian based on the look of them. I think, you know, as I mentioned before when I was going around Bastion, although Bastion itself surprised me, I did quite like the look of it. I definitely think that this leather set here is probably the worst of the ones that I've seen thus far. So we will head over now to here and we will select the Necrolords as being the one that we are going to choose. What I'll do is I'm just going to do a very quick sort of pre-quest, which will be something that you can see if you haven't actually seen this done before, just because I want to get the ability to be able to use these special skills, and then once I've done that we will then look to move into a dungeon, potentially, depending on what the queue times are like. In the meantime, whilst we are making our way over to the Necrolord Sanctum in Maldraxxus, we will have a look at the spells and changes to talents that have come in for Druids as well, because even just in my very short time of having played Druid and having a look at the talents and the spellbook, there's some pretty notable changes in there which will, you know, make a difference to Druid, so it's definitely worth taking a look at those. So we need to go to the readout in Maldraxxus, which is here, this tiny one, so we'll fly over there. So one thing that is quite nice, when you choose your covenant, you get a covenant-based title. For the Maldraxxus, for the Necrolords, it's Baron, which I think is quite a nice title there. So let's have a quick check over on the spells. Now, like I say, I've only really been playing Resto Druid for a couple of days, but I am really enjoying it. Some of the key things worth noting, though, that even I've noticed: Cyclone is now back as a baseline, so this is just baseline Druid, it's not even for Resto, and that Cyclone has made a return. This was in Battle for Azeroth, and I'm not sure if it was the case in Legion, but I believe it is a PvP ability now, or a PvP talent that you have to choose. That has come back to baseline, which is quite a nice little thing. In terms of Iron Fur, I don't know, this is something that I don't recognise from my spellbook on BFA or in retail at present, but it could be there, so I could be wrong, but I believe Iron Fur is potentially also something new. Stampeding Raw, now I haven't checked it, but I believe Stampeding Raw was feral only. Again, this has now become Druid baseline, because as you can see, this is in the Druid tab of your spellbook. So another thing just worth quickly pointing out in case you weren't aware, your spellbook now is broken down into Druid, or whatever class you're playing. These are just baseline, so regardless of what specialization you choose, you will have access to these spells. You will then have another area of your spellbook which is dedicated purely to the specialization, that you choose. Beyond that, I don't think that there's anything different. So Stampeding Raw and Cyclone coming into baseline Druid. Just going to quickly speak to Draka here, just so that we can get the skills. I really like the shoulders that Draka has on here. That is a really nice set. I think that'll probably be a plate set later down the line, potentially, but that is a really good looking set that they can acquire. So we'll just do this quest very quickly. Now, whilst I'm doing that, we can have a look at the restoration tab. There's been another couple of changes here that I've noticed myself. So the first one is nature's swiftness. Now, I don't believe this is currently available in BFA at all. I very much could be wrong, like I say, because I've only been playing it for a couple of days, but ultimately it just means that every 1 minute you get an instant cast, and it heals for an additional 100%. So it could be very good in terms of, you know, situations whereby you have a high burst damage on tank or something like that, and you just need to very quickly pop off a heal. Could be very handy to do. In terms of, I tell you what, I'll jump back to it. I just want to get this quest done, but I don't want to have the spellbook on screen because I want to be able to show you what it looks like while we do this. So the Necrolords, you get them all gathered around, looking nice and spooky, getting in the mood for Halloween. Going to be decorating the house this coming weekend. So not now because it's Sunday today, but the next weekend we'll be decorating the house. Then we'll have about 2 weeks worth of decorations. I might put some pictures up online for people to see if you want to see the decorations that we have. So we complete that first quest after they all stand around and do their little ritual. And then we now go up this little ramp here. I have actually done another character as a Necrolord, so that's why I kind of know how this looks. We come up here and we see the Primus here. He will be the one that will grant us our second skill. So we'll stand on his little area there. We will pray in essence and receive his power. Really cool looking animation. I love the way that he goes into the sort of wraith look there, and it looks like some souls coming out of him and coming into us as we receive the power. So really nice look.
Unto you I bestow this power, defender of Maldraxxus.
So we have now acquired our second ability, which is our class ability.
Blood and thunder.
So we'll just skip ahead of that because we've already done the spells and things on other characters, on my warrior. So just to skip ahead. In terms of the Renowned Quartermaster here, so let's have a look at what some of the transmog. So there is just some equipment that will essentially just be transmog equipment that you can get from here. For whatever reason, I did actually notice this. I remember this now from last time. It doesn't seem to work on this character. What is handy is they've put this resource distributor guy in the actual area now. So let me just quickly get this.
Fortune and wealth to you.
So I think it's anima that we want, but I'll also just take some souls as well.
I keep everything well
I'm just thinking if we can buy something, then at least we might be able to show you what it looks like. So we'll most likely go with a two-handed weapon. Yeah, I've got plenty of souls now. A few different bits here. Great Staff of the Lich Swan. That sounds like a cool looking weapon, so we'll certainly take a copy of that and have a look at it. And then it looks like we can buy all of the transmog set as well, so might as well pick that up while we're here because I am very excited to get that appearance. I think Necrolords are definitely my favourite of the lot. I did originally like the look of Venthyr, and when I did my World Tour video, which you can see in the in the beta playlist that I've made, you will notice that I was very much torn between Maldraxxus and Revendreth in terms of my favourite zones, but having played it a little bit more now, I definitely think Maldraxxus takes the biscuit now. Unlocks Plague. Right, okay, so that's just unlocking first Soulbind. We're not too bothered about doing that right now, because like I say, the main thing was just to have a little overview of Resto Druids, and just to give my sort of thoughts and potentially have a look at what they are going to be like moving forwards into Shadowlands. the more I look at it and the more I see sort of the abilities and things like that, I am very much tempted to go Resto Druid full time. And like I say, I'm really enjoying playing Resto Druid on retail as well, and doing healing in dungeons, because healing is something that I did do quite a lot at the beginning of BFA, and I did quite enjoy it, so I'm kind of looking forward to potentially doing that again. So what we'll do is we'll jump back over to Ouroboros. And once we are there, we will have a further look at the spells and talents that we've got. I'll probably revisit Resto Druid, have a look at doing a dungeon on there, because I've just realised there's quite a few things that I need to do in terms of setup, because I've only just created this character now, but I'm going to have to buy the Honor gear, and I'm going to have to do the pre-quest before we do Torghast, because I'm quite interested to see how Torghast works as a healer, healing class as well. So what I'll do is I'll just have a little run around here. What we can do while we're here is we'll transmog our gear. I'm just trying to think of where it was. I'm fairly certain it's in this room somewhere. Yeah, here he is.
You honor me with your attention.
So if we go on to sets, so there's like a darker set, or is that potentially the only set? It might even be the only set. I'm sure it was lighter in the picture that I saw. And then that is the Great Staff of the Lich Sworn. That is a really cool looking staff. Probably not the right aesthetic really for a druid. That's probably more of a druidy staff, but ultimately it still looks pretty damn cool. Let's just apply it anyway. Does it look lighter in the light? It still looks pretty dark. It seemed a lot lighter in terms of the sort of brown colours and the bone effect on the preview screen, but still looks really damn good. So back to the ability side of things. So yeah, Nature Swiftness, like I say, I don't think that's currently available. Might potentially be a PvP talent, I'm not too sure, but that is now something which is available and comes in Resto baseline. I don't think that's a talent because I haven't looked at the talents yet, but no, from what I can see, that's not a talent on there. We've got Maim, which I don't think is currently available in cat form at the moment. I think normally when you're in cat form, you would just use Ferocious Bite anyway, but potentially I could be wrong there. But ultimately, Maim is a spell I don't think is currently available in retail and will be available moving forwards. The biggest one that I have noticed is, or one of the biggest ones, sorry, is Swift Mend. Swift Mend now consumes a regrowth, wild growth, or rejuvenation effect. Now in Battle for Azeroth, it no longer does that. It no longer consumes anything. That is a really cool looking mount, and it looks like that's one of the ones that you get from Necrolord potentially. But back on track. So yeah, in terms of it, I did buy a mount, but I don't know which one it was. Let's just quickly have a check on this pole arm. What does that look like? Not the best. What does this look like? That's a pretty cool looking cloak. However, you lose your staff, which is interesting. You don't have your stave. And what about the wings? Okay, the wings are really cool. The only thing that I don't like about the wings is the way that they like jiggle from side to side. I feel like they're meant to be wings that have a bit more, you know, rigidity to them. So yeah, not 100% certain on those wings, but pretty cool nonetheless. So yeah, so back to where we were. So Swift Mend will now consume one of those three abilities, which at the moment it doesn't seem to do. Not sure why that's come in. I don't know if that, I mean, it seems to me like that's a bit of a nerf to Resto Druids. You know, ultimately they used to just have Swift Mend, which was an additional spot heal. Now they've lost that, and it means that yes, it's a spot heal still, but you're going to have to then reapply one of your heal over time effects, and you don't know which one it's necessarily going to take off. I imagine it's first in, first out, but ultimately I don't know that for certain because I haven't tested it. We can very quickly test it though, so if I put Life Bloom on, Rejuve and Regrowth, and then if I cast Swift Mend on myself, let's have a look. So regrowth actually went off there. So I wonder, alright, life bloom doesn't count anyway, but rejuvenation went on first and it still took away at regrowth. So I wonder if it does it in that order, regrowth, wild growth, rejuve. Again, we can test that. So if we do rejuvenation and then wild growth here, and then we cast Swift Mend, actually took both. How long does that last? 7 seconds, and that lasts 15. Definitely should have still been honors at that point. So that's very interesting that it took both of them away. Let me just try that again. So I'll cast Wild Growth, cast Rejuvenation. They're both still on. Ah, right, okay, no. So I must have just been slow. So it took Wild Growth off. Yeah. Not sure if I like that or not. But again, I'm sure I'll get used to it, and I don't think it's a huge issue, but it definitely seems like it's a bit of a nerf to me. The final thing that I just want to quickly have a look over for you is the talents. There has been some changes here. One of the most notable ones that I've noticed is that Cyclone is no longer available for Resto Druids. So previously we had the option, well, Ursul's Vortex, which just comes as baseline, and then you would have Cyclone as well, which is really good for, you know, utility, good for PvP, it's good for PvE. That's no longer available now. That has been replaced by, I believe, Heart of the Wild is the one that's replaced by it, which, you know, again is a nerf towards Resto Druids, but I think Resto Druids have been particularly strong throughout Battle for Azeroth, so it was probably coming that that was going to happen, but I still think they're going to be pretty damn strong going into Shadowlands anyway. Overall, I don't think much else has changed. You'll notice the addition of Nourish now, which has appeared on the top bar here. This is just a standard heal, quite a long cast, so I imagine it's more of like a bit of a filler heal, but ultimately I don't know how useful it's going to be. It does receive triple bonus from your mastery, so might, you know, depending with like a mastery build or something like that, it might see some use. But I think with a lot of sort of Mythic Plus groups, especially now, they want to see healers doing that little bit of damage in the downtime. So having a spell that's got nearly a 2-second cast time as filler, I don't know whether that's really going to be much of a benefit. It might help Druids in terms of, you know, sort of spot healing, but 2 seconds still seems quite a long time. So I don't know whether Nourish will actually see any, especially when you've got Abundance as the other option, which is very powerful. I don't know if Nourish is ever actually going to see any, you know, use there really. In terms of Heart of the Wild, abilities associated with their chosen affinity are substantially empowered. So in this case, I've gone with Feral because I found it's best for DPS. So that would mean that your damage of your Feral abilities increase by 30%, and crits generate a combo, like an additional combo point. And abilities that generate combo points generate an additional one as well. So Heart of the Wild, 5-minute cooldown, it's a very long time, could give you the extra damage that you need to kill a boss. It could also give you the additional you know, push that you need, to kill a person in PvP, things like that. So there's different uses that could potentially come in, but 5-minute cooldown is quite a long time when you've then got, you know, things like Mighty Bash, and Mass Entanglement could also be pretty good. In terms of the rest of it, I think it's pretty much the same. I don't think there's been any major changes, to be honest. It looks like this row here might have had some changes, but I'm not 100% certain. But one of the main things is photosynthesis, which is quite handy. A very good talent, very useful because it gives you control over whether or not you want to have the increased heals around your group by putting Life Bloom on yourself, or if you want to stack it on tank. If we just jump over to, not that one here, but this set, is it this one that I want to be on? Let me just try and find it. Right, it's this one here where the the legendary abilities are. So I've noticed something now coming on Druid and having a look at the legendary abilities is that everything from the first 8 abilities are unique to the class and specialization that you choose. The bottom 8 are all the same across everybody. So I didn't realise that when I was looking at them with Warrior, but yeah, these are all the same here, so we don't need to look at those again. It's just these top 8 that we want to have a quick check on. So the first one is Memory of the Mother Tree. Wild Growth has a 50% chance to cause your next rejuvenation or regrowth to apply 3 additional allies within 20 yards of the target. Pretty good. In terms of if you're using Wild Growth, the chances are the group's taking damage. So the fact that it's then going to spread and give more AoE healing is a very good thing. 50% chance is a decent chance. So I think it's an okay looking ability. The next one is the Dark Titan's Lesson. You may Life Bloom 2 targets at once, and Life Bloom's final healing is increased by 25%. Now, I don't know if, because with photosynthesis, if you don't know, while your Life Bloom is on yourself, your periodic heals heal 20% faster. So having Life Bloom on you means that all of your hots on everybody are going 20% quicker. While it's on an ally, your periodic heals have a 4% chance to cause it to bloom. Excuse me. And when Life Bloom blooms, it heals them for a decent amount instantly. So you could potentially have that on yourself and on the tank at the same time with Dark Titan's Lesson, so you're doing 20% faster healing, and the tank's also got a chance to get these extra bonus heals. So that seems like it would be really good. It says 2 targets at once. Now I don't know if I doubt this is the case, but I don't know if you can then put that both on the same target, so you could put them both on yourself and stack the 20% faster to 40% faster. That's something that I am looking forward to testing out, so I will try that. If we have a look down here, we've got Verdant Infusion. Swift Mend no longer consumes a heal over time effect, which would be very handy, and extends the duration of your heal over time effect on the target by 6 seconds. I feel like this could be a very good ability. If I look at Swift Mend now, one thing that I have noticed is we've got 15-second cooldown, so every 15 seconds you can then increase the heal over time effect on your an ally by 6 seconds. Could be very good, because you're only looking at a 9-second difference between then casting it again. So that could be handy, and like I say, it doesn't consume one of your hots, so that is nice. Vision of Unending Growth. Rejuvenation has a 2% chance to create a new rejuvenation on a nearby target. Not keen on that one personally. I think 2% is a very low chance, and it's a very passive thing, so there's not much control. Like Life Bloom on 2 targets, you can control who it goes on. Wild Growth, yeah, that one's a bit more sort of RNG based as well. The Swift Men no longer consuming. That one you have, again, it's more sort of control, whereas this is very passive. And 2% just seems like a very low chance to me. Draft of Deep Focus. When Moonfire, Rake, Rip, or Rejuvenation are active on a single target, their effects are increased by 30%. Now, the thing that confuses me with this one is that when Moonfire, Rake, Rip, or Rejuvenation are active on a single target, now I'm assuming it means all of them. So if, for example, you're attacking an enemy and you have Moonfire, Rake, and Rip on them, they're going to be 30% more effective, and your Rejuvenations will be as well. That could be a very good spell if you need that extra damage, and obviously Rejuvenation being 30% stronger also, you know, Rejuvenation's a strong spell anyway, so having that additional 30% could mean that you have to spend less time coming out of form, less time dealing damage, and then the damage that you are dealing is going to be stronger. So it definitely seems like it could be something that seems, you know, see some use. We then have Circle of Life or Death. Your damage over time effects deal their damage in 25% less time, and your healing over time effects in 15% less time. This again, I feel like is something that could definitely see some use. Increasing your damage, increasing your healing output. The increase in your healing output means you have to spend less time outside of your shapeshift form dealing damage, and therefore increases that damage output as well. So Circle of Life and Death, I would say, is one that seems like it's definitely going to be a good one. Final 2 here, so we've got Lucara's Fleeting Glimpse. Every 45 seconds while in combat, cast a spell based on your form. Not a fan of this one personally. You'd have to keep an eye on it, so you'd need like potentially like a weak aura if you can get one, which will tell you when this is going to pop up. You're then going to have to go into the necessary sort of form to then cast a spell, but even then, 45 seconds you get a free Wild Growth. I mean, Wild Growth to 1.4 second cast, it doesn't take long to do. So I think to wait 45 seconds just to get that once for free, not worth it. And then in terms of Primal Wrath for Cat Form, because I think Cat Form probably is going to be the preferred choice for damage dealing again. If you think of it this way, every 45 seconds you'll get Primal Wrath, which is good, it's going to increase your damage output, but it means that you're going to have to either, one, be on the watch to pre-heal and get everybody pre-hotted, ready for the 45 seconds to come to an end. Or sorry, for the 45 seconds to kick in and get your Primal Wrath, so everyone's healing whilst you're doing your damage output. But there's not a guarantee that you are going to be able to do that, because if it comes to a point in the fight whereby you are needed to heal, and then that procs, you're going to get at best a wild growth, or you might get it in Primal Wrath but then have to come out of feral form straight away, and then it's just wasted. So based on that, I'm not too keen on Lucara's Fleeting Glimpse. I can see some people, playing around with it. It definitely looks like something that could have some uses somewhere. PvP potentially, getting that Primal Wrath every 45 seconds could be pretty good. But yeah, not sure on that one. And then finally we have Oath of the Elder Druid. Effects of Thick Hide, Astral Influence, Feline Swiftness and Ysera's Gift increased by 75%. When you shift into your Affinities form, you gain Heart of the Wild for 10 seconds once every 1 minute. Again, not bad. Heart of the Wild is the one that increases your damage, and if you're feral, for example, increases your damage and gives you the additional combo points. So having that every minute is probably quite good in terms of in PvE, because ultimately you're going to go into feral form, start the encounter with the enemies, bleed them up, and then ultimately you're then going to come out and do some healing. It's the effects of, like sort of Thick Hide and Ysera's Gift. I mean, Ysera's Gift is so passive. It just comes as part being Resto, heals for 3% of your maximum health every 5 seconds. If you're full, it'll heal somebody else random. It's so passive, a lot of it just sort of falls onto overhealing from what I've seen, so I don't know if it is necessarily good to try and buff that up, or whether it'll benefit you that much. But ultimately, that, from what we've seen, is the general very basic overview, because like I say, I am by no means for the imagination a pro Resto Druid player. I'm actually very new to Resto Druid, but it's something that has excited me, so I wanted to share my first experience of looking at a lot of these powers and changes with you guys, and sort of share some more information about the beta. As I did mention, I'm going to be looking to do more videos about different classes on the betas moving forwards, and more streams. So if anybody has watched today and anybody's watched any of my other videos, as always, I just want to say a big thank you. If you want to see more of the videos, please subscribe. I'm currently at 5 subscribers. I would love to try and get that to 10. And even if anybody wants to just leave a comment to let me know if you enjoyed the video and what class or specialisation you'd like us to have a look at next. For now, I just want to say thank you. We will revisit Restoration Druid most likely in the next stream as well. We'll look to do Torghast and look to do a dungeon. I'll get him ready. I'll do the necessary pre-quests, and I'll get his PvP gear on, so he's got a decent item level as well, so that we're just ready to jump straight into those two things. For now, like I said, I just want to say thanks again and take care.